I'm sitting on a massive flower, I'm wearing white pants, my hair is slicked back, and we're about to talk about books. That can only mean one thing. Nature is healing. I realize I haven't really talked about books that much this year. I don't know why. I've been just gallivanting around bookstores, book cities, and I've been having a grand old time. So let's talk about all the books that I've read. I've read some great books. Let's not waste time. Let's get right into it. These intros, they can be a little long. Let's go. The first book that I read, well, I listened to it on audiobook, but it was a nonfiction book, and I listened very intently, so I'm counting it as reading. That was Blitz. Drugs in the Third Reich. I have a really outlandish idea that one day I'm going to read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. I'm not sure if that will ever happen. About 1,200 pages, it's thick history, but I do think it's important to read. So my way of almost reading it is to read this book, Blitzed. This is essentially about the excessive, primarily meth use of the Third Reich. Hitler was absolutely addicted to methamphetamines. It's really interesting to look at how diabolical a person naturally is, and then to see them in a heightened, frenzied, augmented state from drugs. It's mind-boggling. I think that this kind of petered out a little bit towards the end. I think that it started really strong, and I think the fascination of the Third Reich being absolutely addicted to drugs was kind of what propelled it throughout. But I did lose a little bit of interest towards the end just because we already know what was going to happen, and I think that it's unfortunate to kind of wallow in that for too long. It's an interesting take on history, and to look at it from the scope of drugs and addiction is very eye-opening. Yeah, kind of alienate myself from that course that I was going down. I read Little Children by Tom Perrotta. This I picked up because I was reading another book for my book club that was all about affairs. We'll get into that a little later. I have talked about it before on the channel, but this I haven't really talked about. This is all about affairs within a very quaint suburban town. Lonely housewife and a lonely house husband join forces to fulfill each other's fantasies. It's a lot more than that, obviously. It's looking into the politics of the town. Do we forgive people for things that they've done in the past? How do we judge people based on the surface? I enjoyed this. I read this so fast. This was very peak early 2000s fiction. I think that if this was published in like 1994, I'm gonna be upset, but I don't think so. It's 2004. Okay, yes. This is very peak early 2000s. I know that there's a movie about it. Obviously, Kate Winslet, hello, she's here to stay. I thought this was a good read, all about affairs, if you want like a juicy affair book. Then I read The Art Thief, which was fantastic. I listened to this on audiobook. This was so interesting. I was along for the entire ride. This is about a notorious art thief, Stefan Breitwieser. What a name. What a great name. I mean, you can't make it up. He kind of started out as like a petty thief, but he had such an adoration for art that he thought he was saving it. He thought that he was creating this little museum in his house and saving these artworks from the greater institutions. It's an interesting conversation about who deserves to see art, who deserves to keep art, who deserves to really relish in its beauty, and to see how he went about just brazenly stealing things was fascinating, and this is a compulsive, great read. You won't be disappointed if you pick this up. Then I read Tortilla Flat by John Steinbeck. I'm on a mission to read all of Steinbeck's work. I think it can be done. This was his book for the boys. This was his book for the boys. This is just a bunch of guys wreaking a little bit of havoc, hanging out, and in classic Steinbeck fashion, the ending is kind of out of nowhere, and you're gutted. You're gutted. You don't see it coming, and then it happens, and you think, wow, there was a deeper meaning. This is based in Monterey, I believe. If you've been to Monterey in California, you can kind of like superimpose that backdrop and just understand the beauty of that area. I imagine even at the time when he was writing this, and then just looking at this kind of parade of guys making it difficult for everybody. It's a fun read. This, I would say, is probably one of Steinbeck's just having fun writing, and of course tying it together with a little button at the end, which makes you reevaluate your relationships with people and who means something ultimately in the end. It's a Steinbeck, so of course it's perfect. Then I read Crooked Teeth by Karen Jennings. I had read An Island last year by Karen Jennings, and that was one of my top 10 favorite books of the year. I don't know if it's just her writing really works with me, if it's just something that, I don't know, I am naturally inclined to pick up, but I find that I really enjoy the way that she crafts a story. This is all about a woman in like a slightly dystopian South Africa. There's rations on water, there's rations on basic needs, and her brother was part of a group of really bad people. It's all kind of like the internal turmoil coming through the outside. This was like a day read, really easy to pick through. I mean, it's very big text, so it's not a very dense read. I don't think that this is going to be for everybody, but I enjoyed this so much. I might have to switch. I feel like a little baby looking up at its mom right now, so let's switch. Whoa! Snap your fingers and I'm there. I hope that this is a lot better for the people at home. I know that it's a lot better than me looking up like a little baby bird asking mommy for food. Whoa, now let's bring my little stack of books over here and talk about the book that really is going to probably be one of my favorites. I talked about this quite a bit in the video books that I love, but I don't really talk about that much. This I read for my Patreon book club. You should definitely check it out. We have a lot of fun there. This is what spawned my desire to want to read Little Children. This is all about a couple, affairs, the way that they ebb and flow, the way that they grow, and the way that a seemingly harmonious pair can divide and become something independent and different than what they originally were. This was great. This is some of the most beautiful writing and exquisite storytelling and sparse way of depicting a life that I've ever seen. I love it. I highly recommend it. If you're into that type of thing, this is just lyrical and stunning. Wow. And because I can't have that beauty live in my life forever, I have to disrupt it with a little bit of chaos. I read Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis. Oh, I think Bret Easton Ellis is also slowly becoming an author that I want to read every single one of his books. I'm captivated by him as an individual. I've talked about this. He's slowly becoming that guy for me. I wanted to read Less Than Zero. This was his first published book, I think when he was 21 or something, created him into this sensation that he is now. He published this when he was in Bennington College, I believe. So of course I wanted to read this, but I was a little apprehensive to pick up a book that wasn't this exact copy because I love this look. I think it's really great, and this is the classic style of book that I want to maintain on my bookshelves. I love that just manginess that comes with having an old book like this. This is all about the youth of Los Angeles in the 1980s and the underbelly of life there. Everything is so glossy and gorgeous on the outside, but in the interior, everybody's addicted to drugs, and it's campy, it's fun in its own way, and it's Bret Easton Ellis at his most Bret Easton Ellis, and I loved it. What do you want me to say, okay? I'm a fan. This year, I was making a really big effort to read books that I already owned, and I feel like I'm picking books off of my bookshelf that have been sitting there for a little while, and these next couple of books are an indicator that I'm staying true to my word. So I had A General Theory of Oblivion on my shelves for a little while. This is by Jose Eduardo Agualusa. This is a really interesting book. I think this is going to end up coming out on top, maybe not like top, but top 10 probably for my favorite this year, just because it was so unexpected. An agoraphobic woman living in Angola during the Angola Revolution, which honestly is something I didn't even know about, but I learned a lot through this, though I do wish that it was maybe a slightly different narrative. I feel like there's a lot of history behind that I'm still very much not aware of, but this did a good job in, I guess, laying the foundation. This is told through all different stories that seemingly are unconnected, but then they all connect in the end. It's a little bit difficult to comprehend at first, but once it comes together, it kind of is like, oh, okay, yes, I understand why that person it was introduced into the story, and now I understand the relation to this person and that storyline. So it all comes together. What an interesting little book. I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this. And again, I think it's a way of introducing elements in history that you might not have been educated in, and it made me very curious about something that I was totally not aware of. So yeah, happy that I picked this up off my shelf, and happy that I was inclined to pick it up in general. That just fell into my lap. And now we have a book that I can't believe that I took so long to read, but now I'm so happy that I read it. This is Kraftwerk. Future music from Germany. This was great. I bought this in 2021 because we were thinking of potentially going to Germany in addition to Kyiv, spend some time around Europe, but we didn't end up doing that. We just stayed in Kyiv. I bought this because I was thinking, oh, I'll use that as a companion to a German trip. Still haven't been, but now I have read the book, and this was great. I think that this is like a very layman's version of the history of Kraftwerk. If you don't know what Kraftwerk is, it was like a pioneer of electronic music. You've definitely heard some of their songs or samples of their songs. Very kind of primitive electronic beats and just a very distinct sound that was groundbreaking at the time. All about their trajectory, what made them persistent in trying to release this music, and just how unique they were as characters themselves. This just got me. I don't know. I mean, if you're a music buff, I feel like this is a great book to add to your collection if you're a fan of looking at the foundations of music. I love this. This was great. Next book that I read, I think about this book all the time. This is Friday Black. Never heard of this, but wow, am I happy that I've read this. This is all short stories, which short stories are not my favorite thing in this world. I don't love a short story collection. Oftentimes, I think it's the author's way of getting away with publishing stories that really weren't full-fledged ideas. Don't fight me on that. Don't fight me on that. Don't fight me on that. I'm not a critic. I'm just somebody giving an opinion, okay? This was fantastic, though. I was going in a little apprehensive, again, because it is short stories, but I found myself really enjoying this dystopian world that was being created. And it's very much laid into themes that we see now and worlds that feel very parallel to our own, but just have kind of like a little flick of like a Black Mirror type of episode. Some of the stories were obviously a lot stronger than others, but I think what the author did really well was play into things that are like a little bit more niche and just ramp up the volume. Like, I think that he did some of the best depictions of the frenzy of shopping. Obviously, it's looking into consumerism and the way that people become erratic and kind of like rabid during sales and having to buy things. But as somebody who worked in retail for a significant portion of their life, I feel so seen. I feel so seen. Inventive storytelling. The last story is a very dystopian world where people keep dying. Every single day they keep dying. Going through like the stages of grief of dying every single day, and how you can shape your life and the decision that you make during that day. And I think about that all the time. I think about the characters in that. I highly suggest this to anybody that is maybe interested in sci-fi or like want to get their toes a little wet in sci-fi. I thought this was good writing, and I thought that it was really good short stories. From somebody who's not like a huge short story person, I thought that this was really good. Then I read a little baby book, a little baby book by Philip K. Dick. Oh, it's so tiny, it's so small and so cute. Yeah, I told myself that I wanted to get more into sci-fi this year. I feel like I've been talking about that a lot. And Philip K. Dick is kind of the king of that, right? I talked about this a little bit more in a vlog, but this is just a speech that he gave that has been put into text format by Isolari, which I love. I love their books. I talk about them all the time. I feel very cool when I carry this around. This was fun, though. I think it highlighted a humor in Philip K. Dick. It really humanized him in a way that I think his stories are so well known and monumental, and I think that this was somebody who was so ahead of his time. The speech was from 1978, and just looking at the parallels to now and then are eerie, and I think it's just showing a visionary at work and just how his mind unravels. This was great. I read it in like You can read this in like an hour. Then, oh my gosh, this was again a book that had been on my shelf for like a year, and a book that I had wanted to pick up for a long time. It's A Long Way Gone, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier. This is about him living a seemingly normal life in Sierra Leone, and then the Civil War started, him having to become a rebel soldier, and kind of the brainwashing and the way that he became accustomed to that lifestyle. This trauma and this tragedy shaped him into a version of himself he didn't even know could exist. And it's very horrifying in nature, but I think that it doesn't sit in that pit for too long. I think that it pushes the storytelling in a way that it's much more kind of urgently telling a story. Probably the author's intention with this was just much more spreading awareness and making it comprehensible for the average person to try to wrap their head around being a child soldier. I mean, you can't wrap your head around that. And now we're going to talk about a book that was kind of disappointing. And I read this for my Patreon book club. And I wanted to love this. The Shipping News by Annie Proulx. Proulx. I looked this up, and I have to remember that that's how you say it. I got this from the library, so I've since returned it. And I had the most abhorrent cover, so I'm happy that I don't have to show it to you right now. And I have a hair on my lip gloss. It's the spirit of that graphic designer coming after me. Anyway, this I wanted to love. I really wanted to love it, and I feel like all of us in the book club kind of felt the same way about it. This is all about a man who faced tragedy in the United States, and then he moved to Canada, specifically Newfoundland, reconnecting with his ancestors, reconnecting to the people of that land, and learning how to build a life that is much different than his previous life, but really a life that he can call his own. There was so much that I had to say about this book when I talked about it on my Patreon. I'm not going to go into that depth right now, but I had so much to say about this. This really got me thinking, but I think ultimately my experience with it wasn't as deep as I wanted it to be. Great writing. Oh my gosh. I would definitely read more by Annie Proulx, but I think I wanted a little bit more with this. Just a little bit more. After that, a book that really, they have no connection. The Complete Fear of Kathy Acker. I can honestly say that I've been in correspondence with Jack, and he's quite a trip, and this book is exactly that. This book is all about downtown Los Angeles and kind of the ramblings of somebody unwinding, and it's very transgressive. It's very much in your face literature, but I think what makes this different than a lot of transgressive fiction that I think takes itself very seriously is that Jack very much in this character, but very much going along for the ride with you. And I enjoyed this. It was very bombastic. It was very much, when I was talking about it on my Patreon for like things I'm loving this week, I highlighted this book, and I said that the visuals behind my thought process with this book is, if you've ever watched the Soundgarden music video for Black Hole Sun, it's like those very stretched and elongated faces, and that is visually what I was suspended in when I was reading this book. Not the song, definitely not the song, but very much the visuals. It's taking on a lot of political ideas, using this like a very colorful world and concepts to convey the thoughts behind the character. It's very rambly and stream of conscious, which I know I've talked about not loving all the time, but this I think works because, again, he wants you to be right there with him, and I think it's fun. This is definitely not going to be for everybody in the world, but I think if you're looking for a weird book and you're looking for somebody who is just creating and like splashing imagery all over, this is a fun one, and I read this really, really fast, and I really enjoyed it, so it's for me. It's a yes for me, dog. You're going to Hollywood. And after that, on audiobook, I listened to One Day, like a typical 24 Hours in America. This book I saw in a bookstore years ago. I couldn't find it. I like forgot what it was. I loved the concept of it. And then I was reading about books and it was magically there. And I said, oh my God, that's that book about like 24 hours. So of course I found it on my Libby app and I listened to it. This was a great audiobook. I love a gimmicky prompt If it works, it works. I think that this worked. The author created this prompt. Sorry, I hate to use that word again, but I'm going to use it. He created this prompt for himself and randomly chose a date and decided to profile significant events or insignificant events that happened that day. And it's just making commentary on the idea that every single day means something. There's not a single day that doesn't mean something in the grand scheme of things. It's very interesting. I liked this. I learned a lot. And I think, again, it's glorifying much more of the average person's experience as opposed to grandiose events that are pillars in life. I think it's much more important sometimes to just look at the basic stepping stones, and that's what this is doing. Oh my God, I feel like I just gave like a CBS interview about it. That was so professional. And then this was another book that I wanted to make sure that I reread apparently this year. I didn't remember anything about it, and I fell back in love with it. But apparently this was a reread. I'm not sure what I was doing the first time around. Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion. I loved this. I'm sorry. This was great. This almost depressed me in a way because I wanted to be living that. I wanted to be in the 60s. I wanted to be in California. I wanted my hair to touch the top of my butt. And I wanted to be wearing tight pants and a loose top and wearing flowers in my hair and smoking, I was going to say joints, but I would be smoking rolled up tobacco and harmonizing with somebody on the street about love and about injustice and about a world that feels like it's crushing down on all of us. That's what this book felt like. This was so great. I loved this. I feel like secretly I wanted to be a little bit of a Joan Didion hater. Sorry, I'm going to be vulnerable and honest on the internet right now. I wanted to be a little bit of a hater because everybody loves her so much. And this book I read and I didn't really remember it that much. And I was like, was she really that great? So I reread it. Don't try to escape from me. I reread it and it's fabulous. What was I ever trying to be as a Joan Didion hater? I don't know. I don't know who that woman is anymore, but I do know who this woman is now. She's a lover. This was great. Fantastic. Okay, there's only 2 left, don't worry. Then I read Blue Light Hours by Bruna Dantas Lobato. This is a new book. And this I was sent to from Alyssa at Editorial Candle Company. She sent this to me when she sent me new candles. That's amazing. She actually created a candle based on atmosphere of this book, I guess is the best way to say it. I think is kind of like, a lot of people are talking about this book from what I understand. This book made me cry. This made me cry so much. It's based in Vermont, but it is about a young girl from Brazil moving to a Vermont liberal arts college and trying to stay in contact with her mother through their blue lights. It's Skype. It's, having a electronic communication with your mother and being so far away from each other. It's about distance and it's about maintaining that love. You can read this in a day, and I suggest reading it in a day because I think if you took more time with this, it might lose its charm. It does enough in its short amount of time to leave the reader in a state of love, and I think it does its job really well. I liked this. I don't want to be a hater anymore. I think that this is just a sweet rendering of mother and daughter love. Call your mom. And then for last month's pick for my Patreon book club, I wanted to get weird, y'all. Okay, I wanted to get weird in the Miso Soup by Ryu Murakami. I haven't talked about it yet on my book club, but I'm about to be. I'm about to launch that vid. So if you want to see what I have to say about that, check it out on my Patreon. This was a weird one. Really weird, but I think enjoyable. So guys, that's all the books that I read so far this year. I think I'm going to do this every couple of months now that we're about to hit April. Feels like a good quarter to knock out. Anyway, let me know your favorite book so far that you've read this year. I would love to know it. because I'm constantly being inspired by books that people are enjoying, and I think it's fun. The sun is out. Winter feels like it's wrapping up in my hemisphere, and that's always a good feeling. That's always a good feeling. Anyway, you guys are wonderful. You're fabulous. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you in the next one. Little flower girl, little flower girl. Whoa.